the 35-page article, things we learned when reading this article. And it is very long. It took me probably an hour to sit there and read through each thing, and then particularly go back and then type up notes. But these are key things. And it's just going to be like kind of a list. Number one, blood seeped through the wooden floors and ran down the building on the foundation outside. Confirmed. We didn't know if it was going to happen or not. We didn't know if it was confirmed that that was what it was, but it was seeping through the floors, okay, in the house. So, yeah, and outside. So what we saw outside was actually blood dripping. Number two, the 911 call that was made was routed to Pullman, Washington, where Brian lives. This is routine. People work 20 hours overtime per week on average at this, at where the 911 call center. They also admitted it is a public safety, it's putting the public safety at risk because there isn't enough employees to call ratio. That's concerning. Quoting them, our ability to uphold public safety is at risk. Major. I'd be pissed. Offer Gunnarsson went to the scene because he had a weird feeling while driving there. He said it was eerily quiet on their street. Someone in the crowd muttered the word dead, and he said he just remembers that. Like, he just remembers that happening, somebody muttering it in the crowd. And then he explains he had the smell of blood was overwhelming before even entering the property, right? And then he said there was, when he did go in there was lots of blood. Officers, people that were in there, could not even explain, like, they've never seen anything like it before, and they probably never will again, hopefully. It was unfathomable. You know what I'm talking about. Unfathomable. I don't know. Anyways, so he says when he went in on the first floor, he saw empty rooms and nothing wrong. Those were the two rooms of the two surviving roommates. He then states he then learned that they slept through it, which he said he found very weird, unless they were sleeping in bed, hard as a rock, because he said, it's college town, they drink, it's common there. They might have been drunk, passed out, and that's why they slept through it. He states that. He thought it was weird. This is the next part. And you guys, I'm going to read through the comments in a bit. I'm not sure if there's like a bunch of comments going on because it's kind of like blocking the screen. Okay, there's just a couple. Okay. He says, the two roommates get out of bed. Then they state it was impossible to awaken their roommates, the four. So the two surviving roommates get out of bed around 11, and it was impossible for them to wake up their roommates. Do I find that weird? Yes. This isn't really about my opinion right now, but to wake them up, he said the smell of blood from outside was so strong, and there was an unfathomable amount of blood seeping through the wood flooring. And you tried to wake up. I'm going to stop. Because, I don't know, okay? So when they weren't able to awaken or rouse their roommates, they called friends over. One of the friends' phones was used to make the 911 call, and it resulted in an agitated, dispatcher, but she was just doing her job. So she reported an unconscious person. Everything that they said she did was fully reported the correct way, right? Then they go to the second floor to find Ethan and Xana, gruesomely drenched in blood, but their faces were preserved. He said it was like a mask. Like, the whole body was like, what the but their faces, the whole rest of the body drenched in blood, but their faces were fine. He then said one of the officers that was looking at Xana started wailing, crying. They proceed to the third floor bedroom, said it was two girls, Maddie and Kaylee, that were like beautiful, like almost looked like sisters with the long blonde hair, Barbie doll features, but something was different about them in their appearance. It was Kaylee had been fiercely hacked, gouging out chunks of flesh, large punctures. Okay. Maddie's wounds looked less feral, they said, more measured in comparison, but they were still fucked up. I mean, like, it was still messed up. But Kaylee, it was like gouging. Oh, fucking God. Oh, I can't even. This is why I couldn't do it on TikTok. Okay? Because could you imagine? They opened the third floor door to the final bedroom and they said they see a sign of life, Murphy. Not a single speck of blood on that baby. Gunnarsson calls Captain Lanier as he is eating with his family for lunch. He said it took him a second to think about what Officer Gunnarsson was even telling him, the captain. Like, he was like, it took me a second to even like, what? Because it was so out of character. They had to then inform the university that they had to send out a notice to all students because they didn't know who the F did this, right? So within 2 hours, they send out a vandal alert email to all the students and faculty. Moscow PD investigating a homicide on King Road near campus. Suspect is not known at this time. Stay away from the area and shelter in place. They had the entire campus sheltering in place. Like, all of the students sheltering in place around that area. Like, what? And like, anyways, a shelter in place order requires people to take refuge in a room with no or few windows. That's what they said to do. Take refuge in a home with no or few windows. Could you imagine? Could you imagine getting that? Okay. I'm going to tell y'all where you can read it. I have it linked in my Instagram. It shows you exactly where to go. He still didn't have the chance to talk to his chief, Chief Fry. The chief had been getting death threats prior to this happening because he was enforcing COVID stuff and he was getting death threats and stuff like that. But a few days prior, he had a class with the FBI, a behavioral science unit with the FBI. He called the FBI. They assembled a team of 40 people that would be flying in by the next day. He requested multiple of them to be members of the behavioral analysis unit. Then Chief Fry asked Officer Payne to lead the morning briefings. He was in the 82nd Airborne Division in Afghanistan. He led those meetings almost every day for weeks about this case, and they put the puzzle pieces together. So they gave us facts from these briefings. Fact, the 4 students were killed in their sleep sometime between 3 and 5 a.m. In the weeks ahead, they develop a more precise timeline. The murders the authorities deducted occurred between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Fact, there was no sign of forced entry or robbery. Fact, a single weapon had been used, a long-bladed knife and a tan leather knife sheath stamped with the U.S. Marine Corps, whatever, was lying next to Mogan's bed. Fact, there was no trail of blood outside of the house. No trail of blood outside of the house, but blood was everywhere. Fact, the house was a repository for a large collection of forensic evidence: blood, saliva, hair, prints, DNA. But whether any of these belong to the killer after the autopsies, the general consensus held that it was a single assailant still was undetermined. They still couldn't figure it out. They knew they were important pieces to the puzzle, but decided to ask the younger generation, the ones who are online detectives armed with cell phones, us, for help. Tips poured in. 3 weeks later, the gas station attendant decided to look at the camera. That's when they got that. After they reached out to someone who had a 6-part storage unit nearby with their surveillance footage, they knew they had that. You could see his car in that too, right by the house. So it's not just the gas station that they had multiple. Then he started saying he thought it would still just be a mystery. Like he genuinely was like, I think that this will be unsolved at this point because weeks had passed by. They had the knife sheath. They got the tip on the white Elantra that was in the parking lot of WSU, as we know, the night of the murders happening. They matched the DNA of the knife sheath to Koberger's dad because they put all that together. And then the FBI followed him with his dad in the car. The arrest warrant needed to match the DNA, and that's what led to the arrest warrant also. And I will say this. So those are all the facts. Those are all the facts from this. If you want to go read it, I have the link on my Instagram, like where it's at. I think it's on Air News. You could read the entire thing. I took out so much. Of course, it is 35 pages long. And this is part 1, not part 2. It is part 1. But I really did want to give y'all the facts out of that we didn't really know much about. I'm guessing that these interviews were done before the gag order, and then they just released this. So that tells me that they probably didn't know that there was going to be a gag order going against them. But I did want to read this. He said, I wanted to read the last page of what they said. In fact, in his purposeful search for knowledge, he had sent out a research questionnaire of 2 convicts asking for their help. Quote, I am inviting you to participate, Koberger said. Quote, in a research project that seeks to understand how emotion and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent arrest with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. This is bad. What is this? Was this simply a grad student's academic inquiry, however you say that, or was a would-be killer asking the professionals, suppose you wanted to commit the perfect crime, how would you do it? And this is how it ends. And now, under arrest and awaiting trial, he has quite possibly discovered that there is no such thing as the perfect crime. Oh my God. Okay. That was a lot. That was a lot of facts that we didn't know. Okay. But what I'm going to do is upload this now so that everybody could watch it. It averages that it takes like the normal person, like I think 30 minutes it says to read the whole like 35 pages. And I had to read it. Like I probably spent an hour on it. So, cause I just wanted to pull everything that was like, wait, we didn't know this. Wait, we didn't know that. So what I'm going to do is end the stream now, upload this so that it could be watched over and over and over. And what? Is it 15 minutes? Not even 15 minutes. So I love you guys. Thank you for watching our channel, Triple Threat Talks. Subscribe, comment, let me know what you think because I'm mind blown right now. And after you listen to that, you know why I could not go on TikTok and post this.